Hello, citizens of the destination. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. Before we get started, though, just a couple things to get out of the way early. Number one, if you didn't hear in the last episode, I am currently running a contest or a bet, so to speak, to get 500 subscribers to my YouTube channel at Destin Richardson BDR. If I get 500 before April Fool's Day of 2024, I will shave my head bald. No joke. And then last but not least, also save the dates February 24th and May 4th. February 24th will actually be my, I'm throwing a big show. It's my 6-year stand-up anniversary show. I have some great comics already signed on, just no venue yet. So again, follow me on all my socials for when I can announce the venue. And May 4th, we'll be having the roast of Luke Skywalker. So you're not going to want to miss that one. And yes, without further ado, please enjoy today's episode of the Destination Podcast featuring Taylor Kitchen from Above the Yellow Line.
A good podcaster would have had both of our mics ready for when I hit record button. But yeah, there's a reason why you're here, because that way we at least have one good podcaster between the two of us.
I'm still learning. Learning.
In fact, I should have even checked. Okay, good. My mic's not muted. Yours isn't muted.
Sweet. Mike.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll say they're not a sponsor, but the company rhymes with Malou, famous for their Medi mics.
Incredible.
Yeah. So pay us.
Yeah.
Just all the free press. Oh, the amount of free press I've given to some people on this is astounding. I'm still waiting on Miller High Life to hit me up with the endorsement deal as well. Waffle House.
Oh yeah.
What's another one? I talked a lot about Wendy's, I think.
Oh, Wendy's is awful. Not awful. God, sorry. Awesome.
I was like, don't you dare invoke her after their Twitter account. She's back.
No, she's back and better than ever.
She had her Amanda Bynes bender a while ago,
Yeah.
but she's back. She's
good.
back. She's living her best life.
Yeah, Wendy's good.
Yeah. I'll say she's like another famous redhead, Lindsay Lohan. You know, had a rough patch, obviously, but now she's back. She's back. I saw the movie, by the way. It's one of the few Hallmark movies I saw, and it was like really good.
Oh.
Yeah, worth a. I can't tell you the name of it for the life of me, but
Lindsay Lohan.
Just like looks up Lindsay Lohan. Yeah. It was pretty good. My parents are. It amazes me how unironically they love Hallmark movies.
I can't.
I mean, they're the same movie. They're the original MCU.
Yeah.
Like
everything's the same.
Yeah. But no, I mean, it was okay. So if you're looking for something to watch next Christmas, the Lindsay Lohan movie. Anyway, enough about her, though. I want to go ahead and welcome our fantastic guest to the podcast. This is Taylor Kitchen. She is the host of the Above the Yellow Line podcast, also NASCAR Journalist extraordinaire.
Oh,
and yeah. So thank you for finally getting on the podcast. Been trying to get you for a while now.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. It's been a while since we've actually seen each other.
It has been. It has been. For those who don't know, we do go way back, though, actually.
Yeah.
Back to what, like 2014?
Yeah.
2015? Yeah. Back in the theater days, former actors together, done a couple shows. And we took drastically different paths since then. Went to college, got a degree, got a great job, and then there's me telling dick jokes on stage and talking to people in my living room. So yeah, two drastically different paths to that all convened right here.
Oh yeah.
But no, I'm glad to have you here. And so go ahead and we'll go ahead and start with, again, how we know each other. So what drew you to like acting and like theater in general?
I was always just an outgoing kid. Every photo I'm in with my siblings, I'm a triplet. That'll probably come into play here at some point. But every coat on in with them, I'm doing some weird pose, or I'm always wanting to make myself like the standout person. That's just always who I've been. And then I used to do a lot with the Columbus Children's Theater, doing like their like acting camps, or doing like some of their local like stuff, like I guess like kids summer camps or whatever. So I've always been invested in theater. And then I think like 2014, that's when I tried out for my first show at LCP, because I just wanted to go like in full swing. And I was a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. And Helen Lawrence, who was directing that, cast me as this really ditzy princess. And I had never been more happy in my life. So from there on out, I was like, I want to do theater for my life. And I just wanted to be an actor. And because I'd always wanted to be a singer, I'd always done talent shows and singing. And I tried out for America's Got Talent and like all this other stuff.
Oh, you did?
I did. That was like 6 hours of waiting to like be produced. It was awful. Anyway.
Yep.
But I always loved singing, and then we got into the acting, and then I did musical theater, and then of course, get to college, and I was like, yeah, no. But that's how I got into theater, at least, which is kind of a progression through my life.
Yeah, and as someone that now engages in a degree of public speaking, it was a good skill to harbor early. I kind of forgot that was your first show, because that was right around the same time I did Assassins, because that was like my first show there. That was like those were the two shows back to back. Oh, look at that. Which, I mean, tonally
different.
Two absolutely different shows.
Yeah.
One, a very fun kid show. The other one, a very dark, dramatic musical about people assassinating, or attempting to assassinate. And that was where I got my start as Lee Harvey. That was my first time killing on stage. Wow. I haven't killed as hard since, but and then. Yeah, that was great. So then you went to college, you realized, that didn't exactly have time for that. So did you go initially for journalism? Was that like the first thing you did, or? No.
So I auditioned for BGSU's theater program. I had done their musical theater camp, and they're like, definitely try out for this. And I did. And during my audition, just the singing, I had a song that was way out of my range. I'm major soprano. Like I can do high notes. What the song I decided to choose, though, when I'm nervous, did not work. So I thought I bombed that. I thought I had my monologue memorized, didn't have it memorized. And the whole thing was a disaster. So I went to my mom and I'm like, I can't do theater. So I reflected and I'm like, what do I like to do? And the core of theater is telling stories. So I was like, I'm going to be a film production major. And I hate watching movies. So I started off that way because I'm like, okay, this is kind of what I know, the scope of what I know. And that's actually where I met my boyfriend. We've been together for about 6 years now. So, at least I did film for something.
Right. Sorry, fellas.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Taken.
Yeah.
But
I'm not.
You're like, just shameless plug. Not taken. Destin's not taken. No. By the way, guys. Gals. Anywho.
At this point, who knows?
Hey, anyone.
Yeah. Anyone.
Yeah. But started off as a film major, and then I switched to like media production because I was like media, maybe that's like just more, I don't want to say realistic stories, but you're able to like really talk to people and like be invested with them. And then 2019 rolls around, and that's like my sophomore year of college, and I left. I had a medical just catastrophe, essentially. I was diagnosed with a chronic illness, but it took about 1.5 years to diagnose. And then after that, when I came back to school in 2021, I was like, journalism. And that's where I've stuck.
Okay.
Yeah. Long story long.
I mean, you're a storyteller. I expect long stories. That's so like, I love that you were like, the moment you got there where you're like, oh yeah, I don't like half of my initial major.
Oh yeah.
Cause like, I also, those of you who don't know, we both went to Bowling Green.
Go Falcons.
Isaac Ijuba. But then I went for music education, and then about, I don't know, a couple months in, I realized, oh yeah, I don't like kids.
The core of education.
The core of education, yeah. Well, like I would have, if I had to do to be like a choir teacher at like the middle school level is like the lowest circle of hell I can imagine.
Yeah,
because that's everyone's either they're all monotone or they're always like cracking.
Yeah.
High school, I mean, at least that's when you can like start making like a decent like sounding so basically, I wanted to be a college professor where it's like, all right, you're starting to get the whiff of being an adult. Like they're like college kids, there's much of an adult as like White Claw is flavored whatever it says it is.
That's true.
Like it's been in the same room as, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
but yeah, and immediately I was like, oh yeah, I only just wanted to do well. I wanted to go for music, but I was like, all right, how can I tell my friends and family that I'm going to school for something, but and them not disown me? I was like, well, what can I do that gets benefits on a possible retirement, like education? So yeah, once I realized that, I had a crisis of faith there, and between the fact I just couldn't afford to go back, that was the biggest issue. But then yes, also I kind of didn't want to be there anyway. But
I feel like college is all about like just breaking you down because everybody goes in with an idea of what they want to do. And I would say like 80% of the kids that go into college literally just discover, oh, I hate what I was planning to do my whole life because they get a real world look at what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, the only one that I've known that has stuck with their major through and through has been my brother. He's actually in music education. So
oh, wonderful. Full circle.
And I was like, man, but no, I changed around.
He's a band kid though, right?
He is band kid. Yeah. Band kids, choir kids. Hate to say it. Sorry.
I mean, I was both.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then there you go. I was both for a time.
I say trumpet and then French horn.
Oh, there we go.
Which was quite the demotion.
Yeah. Yeah. Clarinet. So I was Squidward.
Yep.
Fits the bill.
Yeah.
We had a whole discussion. The SpongeBob voices.
Yep. Once again, full circle to on camera, off camera.
Yeah.
Or well, she doesn't know this. I was recording the whole time. Yeah. But no, that's cool though. So yeah, again, from journalist, surprised me when you first told me how much you loved it, which is NASCAR.
Yeah.
So where did the love of NASCAR come from?
My grandma. I mean, ever since I was born, she has been a fan of NASCAR, and her driver was Dale Earnhardt Jr. And I always thought NASCAR sucked. I was like, this is awful, boring, lame. I know the stereotypes. I'm like, I just don't, I don't have a care.
All left turns.
Yeah, all left turns. Like, just lame.
Yeah.
And then I watched a race with her in 2016. And I was like, this actually isn't that bad. And it was at one of the worst tracks, in my opinion, Texas Motor Speedway. It's just boring as crap. But I was like, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought. So she took me to a race with my siblings, my grandpa in 2017, like in person, just hearing everything, seeing everything, how close you could get to the drivers. And it was totally different than the sports that I was used to growing up. Cause I played basketball, soccer, tennis. I did fencing. Like I did everything I could.
And you did fencing? Cause like I have a lapse in the back of my fence. If you could like,
I mean, I want to call like an actual repair dude for that. Like I can't do that,
But no, you got to like be in the back and like meet and drive and stuff.
And that was cool. And that's where the love came from because I thought it was cool before that. And then when I saw an actual race, I'm like, I want to be a bigger part of this because I thought it was super sweet. And so from there, I just kind of, I guess, went crazy on social media, just like always talking about NASCAR. I'm pretty sure so many people unfollowed me, but it's insane because it was so much. But then 2021, I was like, oh, that's when I started my show, Above the Yellow Line. And then I was like, oh, I can make a career out of this. And that's where we're at. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I also was a NASCAR kid growing up. So I was the opposite. I started out and then I did phase out. But I do have memories of what's the speedway in Michigan?
Michigan International Speedway.
I should have went with my gut on that one.
You're like, Michigan Speedway, that one. I could have worked too.
Yeah. But anyway, I remember going up there, we hopped on a bus, saw like the real race and everything. And we had like decent enough seats too. Like we weren't like up in the nosebleeds, but like, getting to be like, right. Like we were, I don't know, maybe a couple rows back from like the turn 3.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was really cool. It was one of those, I remember my dad hating every time I had to go to the bathroom during it.
Oh yeah.
And that's when, while we're at one point, my dad had told me the story about he found out that everyone else in our row were wearing Depends, so they didn't have to miss any of the action.
See, now we have stage breaks, so at the end of like a certain number of laps, NASCAR calls a caution, and then the drivers go to pit road, breaks up the action so you can get a snack and go to the bathroom. Back then, y'all were hardcore. I mean, you did anything.
That's
to catch
dedication.
That is dedication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't get the diaper memo.
No.
I just did it anyway.
No, fair. Hey, dedication within itself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I was a Jeff Gordon guy.
Okay. Basic. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very, very basic by like late 90s, early 2000s standards. My uncle Tony was. Can you take a guess?
Tony Stewart.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There we go. I like that.
Yeah. My aunt was a big Rusty Wallace guy
Okay.
when he raced, because I know he went into commentating after a while. And then, we ironically, at being Jeff Gordon fans, we had to kind of hate Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Right.
But I remember where I was when Dale Earnhardt died.
Really?
Yeah, like, they always say, like, where were you for 9/11? I know exactly where I was when Dale Earnhardt hit the wall in turn 3 or turn 4. But yeah, I was at the East of Chicago Pizza Buffet on 79, right by Kroger while we were there. And we were like the only people there too. It was like so dead that night. There I am eating my PB&J pizza because I'm 5.
Yeah.
And then, and it didn't hit me, initially, the scope of what had happened.
Right.
But yeah, it was like such a big day.
I mean, I think if he didn't pass away, the sport would have been totally different. I mean, it was a huge shock.
Like, it broke through the zeitgeist of stock car racing. Like, it made its way into pop culture.
Yeah.
And then, I remember then, everyone initially hated Kevin Harvick because, they knew he was filling in the shoes. There were people that were like, Junior should have got the number 3,
Right.
So yeah, and even then he still got number 3. He got 29, I think it was.
Yeah.
People initially did not warm. It took a while to warm up to Kevin Harvick because he filled in on the Goodrich.
And now, I mean, Kevin Harvick, this was his last season. He's retired now.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to move to Fox to commentate, but he's grown into one of the most loved, respected drivers. He will say it as it is. Like, I mean, you can't replace Dale. You can't do it.
Right.
But he definitely honored what Dale did and the legacy, and kind of, coached his fans that were missing him along, just saying, hey, like, I know you guys are missing your driver, but let me try to honor him the best I can.
Right.
Like, super good guy.
Yeah. And I was a Junior fan though, even though, we were like contractually off. Jimmy Johnson.
I love Jimmy.
Yeah. Talking about another one that broke through. I mean, I think, wasn't he like the first one to like win like Athlete of the Year or something?
Jimmy Johnson?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know he's the first to win 5 championships in a row.
Yeah.
Like, that's never going to happen again.
Right. So yeah, he was the Taylor Swift of stock car racing.
Essentially.
But yeah, no, it was fun. I played like a lot of the games growing up too. Yeah. It's a video game, it's code.
Yeah.
They're not real people.
No.
By the way, that quote's going to age horribly when the AI uprising happens and we're all slaves.
I'm terrified of that. That's why, like, every time I talk to SIRI, because if I say her name, she's going to like say,
I thank her every time.
Yeah, like I thank her every time, and I say please, because I'm terrified. I've seen way too many like 80s sci-fi movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being rude to them.
I'll say, I mean, I've seen Skynet. Actually, a more modern reference, I've seen Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like,
yeah.
Once again, terrifying, a space algorithm that can just like rain down like bullets and missiles on people. Exactly.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Be nice to your AI, folks.
Exactly. We here at the Destination Podcast are huge supporters of our soon-to-be robotic overlords.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, so again, when it comes to like the past of like stock car racing, like where like so you started watching like 16. So I mean, again, that's well past like the scope of mine, but like, so who was like big? Who were like the big players back then? Johnson was still probably crushing it.
Yeah, because 2016, that was his last championship. So Jimmy Johnson was still very big. I mean, you still had you got Dale Earnhardt that's still in there. I mean, you still had some big names that were racing. Kyle Busch. Joey Logano was thinking, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. He's a Chevrolet guy now. So he's kind of hard to not like. I mean, he's really turned it around. Like, he's not like the punk ass kid.
That's where I remembered him as.
Yeah.
Typical Kyle behavior.
Oh yeah, but now he's good, and like even like Kurt, like he turned a new leaf, and unfortunately he was forced to retire due to injury. But I mean, super well respected now. But yeah, those were kind of the big players at the time. It was like, Kyle, Jimmy, and like all those coming up through, or making a name for themselves, making themselves veteran, I guess, in the sport. And then during that time when I joined, I was a really big fan of Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney as they were working their way into the Cup Series. So newer guys, and then Ryan Blaney just won a championship this past year, and I was a mess. I was so excited. I was crying. It was a great time. So.
I think I saw the post cry pic.
Oh yeah, the post cry picture. Absolutely, you saw that.
Yeah.
And then when I was there for a Ryan Blaney win at the track at Charlotte earlier this year,
Oh, yeah.
I was shaking. I was crying. One of my buddies who was sitting next to me, he caught the video and it went viral online.
Yeah.
And Penske, that his team reposted it, and I'm like, I'm a journalist. I'm supposed to be unbiased, but I can't.
Right.
I can't. So yeah.
Yeah. So, what is your favorite track that you've been to?
That's a toss-up. I think there's a really good rustic charm to Mid-Ohio, literally like middle of Ohio.
Yeah, right.
But
Apple name.
I think Charlotte Motor Speedway. I know it's kind of basic, but the facility is just wonderful. The track produces great racing. Michigan, that was a close second. It is the fastest and largest track that you will have on the NASCAR schedule that's not a super speedway. So not a Daytona, Talladega. It's a 2-miler.
Right.
But that racing is always so good and so underrated. But track-wise, Charlotte, for sure. Home of NASCAR.
Nice. I would say I now that we're talking about it, I remember going to the Brickyard. I did kiss the bricks as a kid.
Oh, lucky.
Such a weird tradition though.
It's so bizarre.
And like a part of me wants to know, like after COVID, like if they still are allowed to do that.
They do.
Okay, good.
They still do. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that was because I remember Indianapolis was probably the big to be fair, I was a little kid, so everything's bigger. But like I remember that one probably being the largest that I had been to. I never actually we've been to Daytona, but we never went to the Speedway.
Okay.
I can only imagine it's gigantic.
So I toured it this past October because I've never gone for a race, but I was down there anyways with my dad just as like a little like work vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, okay, let's tour Daytona, and I was like, oh my god, let's do it. I kid you not, I walked in there and I've seen racetracks before. You've seen racetracks before, but nothing prepared me for how just huge that track is. It is beyond anything I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The fact that it's in Daytona, Florida, like it's so just disproportionate to everything else.
To its surroundings, I have to bring up Dover.
Oh God, Dover, yeah.
I'll say the JV track, basically. Yeah. That one, I remember that one was always kind of fun to watch though, because they're having to like pull their punches. Like they can't ever really just floor it at times. Like I mean, even on like, the main like straightaways, they're still tiny. It's
one of the
it's so
toughest
proportionally
tracks.
to the state. Like because Delaware is like one of the smallest states.
And that track is not that big. I mean, it's still like, like mile and a half. So it's not like one of your short tracks, but it's still, I mean, it's a monster mile for a reason. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a gutsy track. So yeah, it's a good one.
And then the two that were always my favorites, because it broke the NASCAR mold. You probably already know where I'm going with this. It was Watkins Glen, and then what was the other?
Sonoma?
The other road track, Sonoma.
Yeah. Oh, Destin, no.
Why?
Okay, so Sonoma, like early 2000s and like before, solid. The past race this year at Sonoma, I fell asleep, and like I can't fall asleep because my job is to watch and report.
Mm-hmm.
Awful, like
and mania.
Yeah. Exactly. that's another big part of my job. But it's just the racing. The racing is so boring now, and I think it's just with the Gen 6 and the Gen 7 car, they are not made for road course racing. Whether it's aero, tires, it's awful. Yeah. So back in the day, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
But Watkins.
You like to see them kind of out of their element. You like to see them having to adapt on the spot. It felt like. Like even the ones that supposedly did well, like they never made it look easy, and I liked that. I liked that you could tell that it was even challenging for them.
Those are the tracks that I love to see because, like Daytona now, I think with the car that we have, aerodynamically, it's a lot more tough. You're not seeing a lot of like the train, single line, single file racing like around the track anymore. Like for Talladega, Daytona, and even Atlanta now because it's more of a super speedway, they're they're 2 wide or 3 wide the entire race, and it is like one little mistake and everyone's jumped, and it's so intense. But even the road course races too, like even at Mid-Ohio, talking to the drivers there, walking me through the track, and I'm like, I couldn't do this. It's so challenging, but it's fun to see that they're even challenged, like you said.
I so kind of sort of shifting topic here, and again, this is the questioning whether you made it all the way through or not. On a scale of accuracy, where does Talladega Nights stand to you as a depiction of NASCAR?
Gonna be real, I hate that movie because I think I saw the longer cut of that movie and the jokes went on way too long. I was like, but
it's not it's not like Lord of the Rings where the extended cut's the better one. With a lot of Will Ferrell movies, sometimes you want that theatrical cut. You want the one where he's like reined in
because it's the perfect amount of comedy, and with this one, some things that are satirical in nature that just take things like to like the 110% are pretty accurate. I mean, the sponsorship readings that he does in the movie, accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd give it like a 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. I mean, it's decent enough. I'd like to think that NASCAR takes themselves more seriously, but sometimes we don't, and that's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, so there's no real accuracy to the slingshot.
No. No. It would be cool if.
Yeah.
But no.
Or like going from literally last to first with like no cautions in between, no pit road stops.
So it's possible depending on the track that you're at and depending on how many enemies you want to make. Like Chase Elliott, and I think there was a caution in between.
Oh, Ricky Bobby didn't care about enemies.
No, he didn't care about enemies. He was like, I want to win. But even Chase Elliott, he was about to win. I think it was like the Watkins Glen race so many years ago, and he missed the first turn and he barreled into the wall. And I'm like, his car is junked. Like he's gonna have to start in the back. He can't win this race now. I think there was one caution in between, but he went from the back of the field, and road courses it's much more difficult. Went to the front and won in a matter of like I think 6 laps. And I'm like, wow. I mean, say what you want about Chase Elliott if you're a NASCAR fan, but I mean he does have talent. I mean, so it's possible. It just depends. But at Talladega, no way, unless the rest of the field gets junked and they're lucky.
Yeah, exactly. I'll say, and then the getting to well, no, actually, I think they like null and voided. Never mind. Yeah, they null and voided them getting out of the car and racing on foot.
Yeah.
That was just
yeah.
I mean, that was. The thing is, that's probably my favorite Will Ferrell movie, though, because like
you don't like Elf.
I do. Okay. I'm just saying, if I had to pick a favorite,
that's fair.
I think the humor is more on point. And again, we're talking the classic theater cut too.
Oh yes, absolutely.
I think the humor is way more on point. And yeah, it isn't like it's not like satirizing like NASCAR as a whole. I should say, like,
right.
It's definitely not done in a malicious intent either.
No.
Sometimes satire can be a little malicious. It seemed like it did like respect the sport enough.
Yeah.
But then of course it was just a classic Will Ferrell movie. So yeah, that's good. Yeah. Obviously I had to fuse comedy and NASCAR in any way I could. But anyway, so yeah. So and then where do you see stock car racing going in the future? Like where do you think like social media, if anything, because that has such a huge detriment on just about anything now. Where you see stock car racing in the future of like social media?
That's a good question. For me, because I also work behind the scenes. I market drivers and I work on their social media strategy with 2 driver development companies. So as much as I'm in front of the camera doing the journalism and content creation, I'm also behind the scenes, which gives me a lot of good insight. All companies now want you to have a good social media presence. They want you to have money. Your talent doesn't matter anymore, which is such a shame. You have to have money or the famous last name or you get nowhere. And that's with any sport now. Or almost anything.
Comedy.
Yeah, it's pretty much with anything, which is so unfortunate.
Yeah.
But you have to have a good social media following. You have to have a good social media presence. If you're not personable, you're not marketable, kiss your chances goodbye. Because you're not going to be able to sell what a company wants you to sell. Whether it's a product, whether it's a service, you can't do it. So in terms of social media, though, NASCAR has a new TV deal in 2025 with a 10-week streaming period in between the middle of the season. So you have NBC, you have Fox, you have NBC, then you have streaming. Okay. And I think the future of the sport is going more towards digital first. So I'm probably the next TV deal we have in so many years will probably all be streaming, if not like only like 70% of it. And then in social media now, it's more drivers doing live streams. It's NASCAR itself putting on live streams to get their fans engaged and involved. And social media rewards. NASCAR they have an app and they're doing NASCAR rewards. So with that, if you tune in for different races into their app and press like check in, you get rewards. I got 4 free tickets to this year's NASCAR races because I tuned in. So I guess in terms of just social media, it's just bigger and better. I mean, to the future for NASCAR. I could talk about NASCAR going EV, that's in the future in the next 10 years, I'm sure.
For sure.
Yeah, there's at least some hybrid component, but everything's going digital, electric, whatever, towards the future.
Yeah. Yeah. As you mentioned with the fact that it's all about the social media presence of the racer now. I mean, like, again, with comedy, same thing. I mean, it is so much less about your actual talent and your social media following. And unfortunately, my social media following is kind of shit. Thank you to the ones that do, not dogging you. I love all, like, maybe 80 of you, maybe. Yeah, exactly. But unfortunately, like, I've been flat out told out I'm losing on some gigs just because they took a look at my social media and they're like, dude, you get like no reaction. Like,
because it's like, it's not even at that point, it's not about your talents. Okay, how many eyes are going to see that you are here?
How many butts are you putting in the chairs? And
right.
like, and that's the thing. And I when I do get the butts in chairs, they always walk out happy. Yeah. I would say I believe it or not, almost never bombed.
Good.
The few I have, though, they've been legendary. But no, I mean, like, I pack them in. They have a good show. But then the fact is, there's like, yeah, why would we book you even though you know what you're doing when we can get this TikToker that has never been on an actual stage before? Like I said, Funny Bone, I mean, about maybe, I don't know, one weekend out of the month, it's someone that's never done comedy,
right? But
they're a TikToker and they have a huge following, and they're putting the business before the funny of funny business,
right?
So like, yeah,
I love that.
Yes, because I'm all about blending the business and funny business too. But
and my thing is with journalism in general, like your typical like local news is boring. The format's awful. And when I was learning the broadcast journalism side of my degree, I'm like, what the hell are we doing? Like, nobody's watching this. Like, and then when they try to do something that's more in tune with today's like media, whatever, it's cringy. And so my thing is, I don't want to go that route. That sucks. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I have the journalism background. I have the professional training. I have the internships. I've been on broadcast TV for CCHA hockey. I did ringside reporting. I'm like, I have this experience. How do I meld this with something just fresh and professional that I can also get in with social media so that became like TikTok reels and the podcast and YouTube. And it always really does bother me when you see somebody on TikTok who has no background in what you're doing, has no professional training, somehow are like, I'm going to do this. And then they somehow gain a following or whatever, even though they don't know what they're doing. And then they get more notoriety. And it's like, you put in all this work and somebody who's not done this much work is already above you. And I'm like, how does that make sense? But it's just how social media is. It's what people value now is the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, some of my bigger shows I've like submitted for, like, especially like festivals nowadays, even just to open for this one guy, like on the questionnaire, it even said like,
how many followers
do you have? What's your average attendance of your shows?
Yeah.
And yeah, almost every time they've even said like, yeah, the clip's good, but we just, we need more presence.
Yeah. So frustrating.
It is, but it just, again, all I can really do, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm also actively trying to cultivate my social media following as well. But while you're building that, it just means keep building the other side of things, keep building on the talent angle.
Right.
And then it's one of those, unfortunately, there still rings true that if you build it, they will come kind of thing. Like, if you are talented enough, people will eventually hear it. Or if you're just really good at convincing people that you're talented.
That's true. I mean, social media is both sides of it. I think, though, a lot of it is like, you are your brand. You have to think of yourself as a brand. And then you have to come up with almost like a marketing plan for yourself to build your audience. And also, to social media, it's throwing shit at a wall and seeing if it sticks.
Yep.
And then whatever you land on, you keep doing until your audience is like, oh, I'm bored of that. Right. And then you try something else.
Yeah.
So, and then it's tricky when you balance journalism and journalistic ethics with content creation. And the way I do it isn't always the most entertaining because people want the comedy and stuff like that. I'm like, but I'm a journalist first.
Yeah.
So that's a tricky balance, but it really is just praying something works.
Right. I was actually just about to ask you about when you are conducting an interview, what like process do you go through, like, to prepare, like what research, how you like form your research, just how you attack the interview?
Yeah. So for interviews, I usually look at social media first. I'm like, what is relevant in this person's life? What means the most to them right now? And I go off of that as a base point. And I write down, okay, this driver just signed this company, whatever. And then from that, I go way back. I'm looking at their website. I'm looking at their Wikipedia. I look at their stats. I'm like, is there anything notable that could be story worthy? Because it's really easy in NASCAR. And I start off most of my interviews this way, especially with drivers that aren't in the Cup Series, maybe don't have that notoriety yet. And I'm like, where'd you get your start? And they'll tell their story there. But I really do, with the interview research process, start off with the social media, then go back. And then I look at in between things. I'm like, okay, well, last season, like, for instance, I'm all over the place, but the season's about to start. If I was going to interview a driver to say, hey, let's preview your season, I'm talking about last year's stats. So a lot of your prep has to do with what in sports is like what's relevant now. But sometimes too, like you do your research just to make sure you know the person, you know their background, but then it's like, let's see where the conversation goes. Like it's good to have like 20, 30 questions prepared if you want to, but you might not use all of those. And if you're like, I have to get all of these questions in, it's going to really restrict your conversation and the interview's not going to feel comfortable. So it really is just making sure you understand the person and then just rolling with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have my basic 4 questions.
Yeah.
And again, the bread and butters, where'd you start? Why'd you start? Who made you want to start?
Yeah.
And then, where you want to see yourself in the future.
Yeah.
Those 4, I mean, obviously those are the bedrock of any interview, really.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
I'll always try and do a little deep dive, find something juicy if I can. And I mean, for the most part, I interview comics, and the worst part is you can almost never base off of like their material that they do, because for the most part, the material is either completely fake or truth just so over exaggerated.
Right.
Mine's way more in the second. Like there's always some truth to anything I do on stage, but again, it's just
it's over the top.
The over top romanticization, overreaction, all that stuff. Yeah. So like I can't tell you how many times, like as I'm trying to get to know the comics behind the scenes of me, like just referencing the material, because again, I want them to know, like, hey, I see you, I listen to you.
Well, that's what I'll do too. Like if a driver's on a podcast, I'm like, I'm gonna listen to the podcast, see what they said. And then if I'm like, ooh, that's a really good question, but they didn't go in depth, I might ask them a question about that moment and reference it. And they're like, oh my God,
question
you
the springboard there.
Yeah, essentially. And those are sometimes the greatest questions because they're more in depth than the base question that they were already asked.
Right.
So.
But yeah. And then when I bring up whatever the question I had for them is, they're even like, dude, I made that up. What are you talking about? I was like, God forbid but no. So speaking of, where do you see yourself in the future? Give us the Taylor Kitchen 5-year plan.
God, it's always changing because I have this vision for myself that's and is like loving spending time with family and friends and whatever, and being finally back in Columbus. And then there's the other part of me that's like, I just want to go live in Charlotte. I want to be in journalism in the NASCAR world 24/7, doing the content, journalism, PR all the time. And balancing those lives is very tough because they don't always coincide. Families get together on weekends, sports are on weekends. That's my job. Yeah. So ideally for me in 5 years, just thinking broadly, I just want to be comfortable. I want to be challenged. I want to challenge myself, but I want to be comfortable. I also want to feel solid in my income. Like I just want stability, I think in 5 years. Yeah. The ultimate dream would be like a pit reporter or working for a team. I've always said, like, if I could work for a team, I think it could make a big difference. And I love that. So I don't know, just if I can build my brand up and make a name for myself and do pit reporting or something like that and have a stable job in 5 years. I know it's not an interesting answer, but that would be the ultimate goal for myself, is just to feel like the hard work that I did now and the brand that I built in the worst part of my life becoming the best part of my life. Yeah. Actually, all that paid off. Like that's the ultimate goal.
Nice.
Yeah.
We have very opposite goals then, because I have stability and I want to get rid of that stability.
I love that.
Well, don't get me wrong. I want stability in instability.
Oh, yes. But before you do that, you got to make yourself uncomfortable first.
Yeah.
Then you find it.
Yeah. And like a lot of people, they'll say like, if you're making the switch from, again, having a stable job to then going into a hobby, a passion, a dream. They always say like, you'll never actually make it if you still have that safety net. You have to cut the safety net out.
You have to.
I don't want to do that.
You should.
But no, like my goal, like, I mean, I'll be real. I don't see myself here in 5 years. Yeah. I'll transfer somewhere else. Again, maybe Chicago, maybe Atlanta if I can deal with heat. But
that's fair.
And traffic.
Oh God, traffic there.
Traffic in Atlanta is pretty terrible. I mean, not like Chicago, much better, but
not like Charlotte either. That's awful.
Yeah. But no, in 5 years time, I want to be able to like get like decent club bookings like twice a month. So basically every other weekend, do enough comedy, podcast during the week, and be fine.
Mhm.
And like, and that's the thing, if I could get to that schedule, that would actually free me up to possibly have a child.
Yeah.
Because I mean, with the hours I have now, like that's why I don't even have a girlfriend now, is because I have 3-4 hours a week of free time.
No, that's the thing. I mean, because essentially right now, and I will say like now, like I'm officially LLC and I'm running my own business. And that's stressful as crap because you are your safety net. You are keeping yourself afloat.
Mhm.
That's terrifying. And for me, I have no free time, and when I do, I'm still working.
Yeah.
But
Same. I'm still writing even in my
right.
free time. Yeah.
It's like you are always working, but a lot of it is just betting on yourself and seeing what happens. But at some point, you do want that free time. You do want to be able to have a family.
Yeah, because that's my thing. I want to be the stay-at-home dad during the week.
Yes.
Then get out of the house once I've had enough of them. Once
No,
they've driven me up a wall. Get out for the weekend.
Yeah.
Make 500 strangers laugh.
Yeah.
Get paid for it. Stay in a hotel. Get free drinks from the club,
Yeah.
and then an ideal life for me. And then and then she can work during. Obviously, she works during the week, and then she has kid during the weekend. Like it works well. She gets 5 days of freedom. I get 3.
Fair.
But also considering that what I would then be doing is barely work. Like
Right.
that's the goal. No, that's only going to be in 5 years. That's going to be maybe 10 years if I'm lucky.
It's like attainable goals. Like my whole thing was like when I came out of college, or even like when you're younger, you're like, I'm going to be the president, and then you actually get to college, you're like, that takes years. I can do that right at the college. So it's being like really reasonable with your goals.
Mm-hmm.
So when you actually get to that 5-year mark, and you're like, did I do what I set out to do? You don't disappoint yourself.
Right.
That's the big thing.
Yeah, I actually kind of made the mistake of setting, like when I was in like high school, I set such a reasonable and achievable bucket list that like I crossed off all my boxes at like 24, and there was a whole period where I was just like,
now what?
Exactly. I'm side questing now. I finished my main storyline.
It's like a D&D game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm just getting collectibles now.
Yeah.
Doing NPC task. Just in case there are nerds still listening, I speak the language. But yeah, I had to basically like write a whole new bucket list because I achieved the first one.
I mean,
I was like, I left the country, I got a good job, I lost my virginity. That was it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, for me,
so I wanted in high school with those 2 things.
Oh God, I'm still tame. Like, I'm not a fun person, Destin. I'm really not. I'm super professional, never got into trouble. Like, I was like, we talked about this before, but I was like, I'm not going to do anything.
Despite that wine you have right
there? That'll be a secret.
Ginger wine.
Ginger wine. But like, I was like, I'm going to go into college and be crazy. I never was. I'm just me. I'm very professional, very just blunt, whatever. But I will say too, like before I got really sick, I was a totally different person. Mm-hmm. And then I got sick, and I just, not like I got jaded to the world. That's not what I mean. Mm-hmm. But more so, I'm like, okay, I'm taking life a lot more seriously. I'm really I'm not a risk taker, but I'm like, I was bedridden for 1.5 years. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I sat around way too long, not doing shit. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I owe it to myself, now that I'm healthy as I'm going to be, to go for what I want to do. Right. So like, that's my thing. I'm like, just got to go for it.
Yeah. We again both going to Bowling Green State University. I mean, we had all the opportunities in the world to get trashed, to just like destroy ourselves every weekend. Yeah. And I also, people will find this very hard to believe, I was a very good boy when I was in college. I drank one time on St. Patrick's Day. Now, granted, I started with an Irish car bomb. Still had to be kind of sober. I was still like the den mother of our friend group.
Oh, yeah.
And also, we were freshmen at the time. I can tell the story. It's been a decade. Statute of limitations is over. So I'm still going to try not to say any real names here. But my friend rhymes with Mandan. He decided that he wanted to set a personal record, and he had 19 shots.
Oh my God.
Now he's a big guy.
Okay.
But even then, and he had probably like a couple Keystone Lights, some trashy beer like that. Yeah. Try Keystone Light. Don't you dare try and sponsor this podcast.
Oh.
We are a Miller High Life podcast here, damn it. So yeah, and he was like already stumbling through the hallways before we even left. And when they jokingly asked me to be the designated walker, I kind of like I kind of laughed. I was like, oh, haha, I get it. And then I realized, oh wait, I actually had to like do stuff.
Yeah.
I had to make sure they didn't fall into the road walking from R.I.P. Harshman.
Harshman, God.
Walking from Harshman all the way down, to Main Street to the bars.
That's a bit of a walk.
Oh,
That's a bit of a walk.
It was, and not to mention a brisk walk, because it was March in Bowling Green, so a light wind of like 25 miles an hour at all times. But yeah, we finally get in this huge line to go to a bar. I'm not gonna say which one.
Yeah.
Statute of limitations isn't up on that one, but we're in the line. And we're finally like maybe 2 or 3 people away from the bouncer, letting us in after seeing the fake IDs, and my friend Mandan pukes.
Oh God!
Right in front of everybody.
No.
And the worst part is, he did it right on the hood of a car, and that car apparently belonged to the other bouncer that didn't see.
Oh my God.
So he got in a rage. So I frantically, I'm even just like, yep, I'm taking him back.
Yeah.
Don't worry about him.
Yeah.
And it got to the point that I'm like having to almost carry this guy like on my shoulders.
No.
Like he was just that unresponsive. I could hear, like, fortunately, because again, I was like close enough, I could hear round 2 coming back up. And yeah, he went right on the train tracks.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Yeah, if you know, you know. I'll say, come to Worcester and Thurston. That's where I finally get him back, and this was like the one of the very few weekends that my roommate he's not from Chicago, even though he told everyone he's from Chicago. He was from some town far west of Chicago. But he was not there that weekend. So I was like, I don't want to carry him all the way to Harshman. So I, dropped him off in Centennial, and I let him sleep it off in my roommate's bed. And I put him on his side, and I just like stuffed I like almost strapped the trash can like on his.
Yeah, you're like just
like I had to hold it just in case.
Yeah.
And sure enough, and I sit back down, and I go back to watching the other half of Boondock Saints, because it's a St. Patty's Day tradition. Yeah, and at one point, it gets right to the end with the Espiritu Santo, right before they shoot the big man in the courtroom.
Okay.
It gets right to the In Nomine Patri, E Filii, and right before Spiritu Santo, right at the shotgun, like, I hear
no.
in the trash can.
Oh my God.
I was like, my man, you were just like 2 seconds too early.
Yeah.
You could have done it right on the Spiritu Santo.
Yeah.
But, yeah. It's a fun podcast story to end on.
The college times. My first college party was in Centennial.
Mm.
I sipped a shot and I've never drank again. I've never drank a shot again.
What was the shot? Did you know?
I don't know. Some clear vodka, something like that. I don't know.
Kamchatka. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Or wait, what's the other like equally bad?
I don't even know.
I don't know. Yeah, if we were drinking cheap shade vodka, it was always Kamchatka.
Oh yeah. Fun college times.
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, I mean, other than St. Patty's Day, I mean, I didn't partake.
Yeah.
I would always like I would hit them up about like, hey, let's like play pool, or let's have a movie night or something like that, and they were like, and then I would like look out my window and watch them walking to the bars later.
Yeah, I was an activity gal.
And then I'd get depressed, and I would call up pizza delivery, and I'd say add a pint of Ben & Jerry's to it too.
That sounds about right.
I had a lot of those weekends,
right.
which is also how I got a freshman 50.
Love that.
Yeah, that's right, 50.
Whew.
Fun. Yep, those are good times. Well, anyway, we probably should get to wrapping this up here.
Yep.
Again, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
For all those listening still, be sure to check out our podcast, Above the Yellow Line, all about, again, eating, breathing, sleeping, living, NASCAR. And yeah, just stay in touch with her socials, where can they follow you at?
Yeah, I'm at Above the Yellow Line on literally every platform, and at _Taylor Kitchen _ on Twitter and TikTok.
Twitter, what's that?
I refuse.
I do too. Again, just proof that Elon really is stupid. Yeah. We'll badmouth him at this point. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not afraid.
Freaking. Yeah. Give me a written plan on how I can end hunger for $6 billion, and I'll do it. And then he goes and he buys Twitter. What an idiot!
Guy.
Yeah. What an idiot! I've been using Twitter for free.
Yeah.
I didn't have to use $6 million to get Twitter.
Pretty much.
But yeah. So anyway, check out our podcast. Fuck Elon Musk. Again, thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you.